They were as good as it gets. They were a pure footballing team. They made the rest of the league look like amateurs. We were that far behind Real Madrid, but Real Madrid were a much more mature team with the likes of Puskás, Hento, Di Stefano. That's the sort of league that we're at. We would have been beating them within a year. They were that close. All the players came from the UK or came from Ireland. We didn't go out of those shores, and they all came through the ranks with the exception of the odd player like Tommy Taylor, who was signed from Barnsley for £29,999 because Busby didn't want to spoil him by paying £30,000 for him. But they were that good.
Where were you when you heard the news of the crash?
I was a 14-year-old kid going home from school. I was on the bus and I saw somebody lift a newspaper up and the headline was United plane crashes on takeoff. And quite honestly, I didn't believe it would be serious because they were taking off. I thought, you know, the wheels had fell off or something like that. I never expected for it to be the disaster that it turned out to be. Manchester was a very, very sombre place for a long time.
15 days after the crash, the news came out that Duncan Edwards has died. How did you feel then?
It was something that you couldn't believe. Duncan Edwards couldn't die. Duncan Edwards was a giant, so strong, and he was the greatest player I ever saw in my life. And ask Bobby Charlton what he thinks about Duncan Edwards, and you could put him any position on the pitch and he could play it. He was playing for England at 16. He was a colossus.
What was it like in the aftermath? You went to that first game against Sheffield Wednesday. It must have been a strange atmosphere.
It was very sombre. People were very sad. The stadium was packed. But once the match started, the atmosphere was electric. You know, you had to feel sorry for Sheffield Wednesday because they had no chance, because they had 60,000 people against them, as well as the 11 on the pitch. And I've still got the programme framed on my wall now, where you had to write the names of the United team in, because they'd got printed the Sheffield Wednesday team, but the United team, we didn't know who was playing. You had to write them in, and I've still got that on my wall. I think Matt Busby was treated like a god. He was one fantastic manager. Jimmy Murphy, his coach, who was behind him, who got very little credit for it. It was always a great number 2. When Matt was in hospital, in the oxygen tent in Munich, Jimmy Murphy held the reins, held it together for him, did a lot for it. And I think those two people, with directors of the Edwards family, they stood together, and I think they've built Manchester United. I think the history there is as strong as any club in the world. You know, you think, what did we miss? Because I'm being selfish when I say what we miss. As supporters, we were deprived of the greatest football team in my lifetime.